All right, everybody, welcome to the April 17th, 2023 meeting of the Newcastle Environmental Review Board. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the March 27th, 2023 meeting. Did anybody on the board have questions, comments about the minutes? Well, no. I noted a few typos, grammatical errors, nothing substantive. I've marked it up. Okay. We'll give it to Dennis. And hearing no substantive comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Dennis?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Next, we have a returning application, 43 Kitchell Road. Dennis, you want to update us?
Sure. So received a revised, describe it as more robust mitigation plan covering two areas of the property that are adjacent, different segments of the water course. I know there was discussion at last meeting regarding sort of that alternatives analysis. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just going to, as far as the mitigation proposal, location, species, concept, I feel it would work on the property. So I had no issue with the mitigation plan that was submitted.
Mm-hmm. What about the other questions that were raised? Not necessarily even alternatives, but there was some, I think, staging questions and how machinery would go on the property, et cetera.
Right. So I did. Yeah, I mean, I did see your stockpile right off the bat.
Yeah, so,
yeah.
Mark Masticano, you want me to address those or? Okay.
No, that's fine.
Sure.
So, yeah, following the last meeting, which my partner would like to add on Zoom, we had originally showed our access to come around the front here, much of which is actually in the buffer. So we changed that to access off the existing driveway to come along here for machine access to get to where the excavation for the addition would be. Our soil stockpile area would be here. So to the extent possible, we try to relocate all of that so that it's as out of the buffer as possible. There was also some conversation about retention and drainage, and so we included Coltech drywall assembly to pick up the runoff from the new impervious surfaces, and that would be piped around to this area here, which gives us the proper setback from the septic. It keeps us it keeps us downhill from the septic, keeps us separated from all of that, and enough off the property line and from any other properties in the house to make that work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had just asked one other thing that you show a silk fence, but given the type of work that's going on, some sort of just enhanced way to filter out.
We can do state phase houses as long as.
Exactly, yeah.
We can add that.
That was my other comment.
And we did look at some alternative ideas, just from, the bedroom wing of the house is on this side of the house. So anything we do really needs to be at that end of the house. So anything we do is going to be in the buffer. So we did look at the possibility of trying to add out here rather than to the side. And it just doesn't really work. It doesn't really accomplish what Mr. Schneider's trying to accomplish, and replace this addition basically here. We still need to come out to the side. All of that is still in the buffer. This is an area of where there's windows below and a patio below, so we would be kind of interfering with that. Where this is an area that is just really a lawn area, very, very underutilized. And we felt that still this works best for the layout of the house and for the property. And I think that Paul has some additional photos of that area.
Sure. I think one of the questions was not necessarily relocating it, but reducing it in size,
We looked at that, I mean, it's, I don't think it's really.
so that you're reducing the amount of intrusion into the buffer.
We looked at that, and again, we're trying to deal with what I was trying to accomplish, and we really didn't think that we could really accomplish what we wanted by reducing the scale of it.
Be a little more specific.
Yes, you would not get the amount of closet space that we were trying to accommodate. The fixtures in the bathroom, the clearances in the bathroom, and the size of the shower, and all of those different items, and it just didn't seem like compromising the design for, what would be very little minimal reduction would really make sense, frankly, because we'd still be in the buffer. We'd be excavating almost the same exact area. It seemed like we weren't really gonna be accomplishing much. And at the end of the day, not accomplishing what the whole goal was just not meant to begin with. So we decided it's really best to stay with this layout.
I could, I took some photographs out of the site and I'll pass them around, but I have 3 columns here. The first are photographs of the proposed new access route coming off the driveway and behind the house. It's actually a better area. It gives us much better access at the end of the day, so it was a good suggestion. And here we are looking at from the driveway to the back of the house, and to your point, there's the windows that we're talking about right off the back of the house on the patio. And in this column here, the proposed residence addition, and when I pass it around, you'll see a pink ribbon that's staked out at the corners, which shows the proposed addition. And you can get a sense of what the grade looks like out there. It's a lawn area, it's very gently sloped. And there's no trees to be taken down. And then the proposed mitigation area that is between the wetland, that's really mainly on the neighbor's property. It's a steep slope up and then a level one. It is right over here. And we have 3 shots of that. This is along the grade or the property line. And this gives you an idea what the edge of the lawn looks like, and then this slopes down to the neighbors. And this little pink ribbon here is this the southern end of the proposed addition. So you're looking over at the proposed mitigation area. And the proposed mitigation area.
Does that area ever get wet? Soggy, that?
No.
What, the mitigation area?
No, the area where the addition is going.
No, it's
Is that-
all the way down the end where the big stream goes across, that gets a little bit soggy over in the back. Down here,
But this area here,
Mhm.
No, you're well,
No.
actually.
No, we're quite fortunate. The parent soil material that's in this area is actually, it's called Riverhead. Excessively well, it's got very good drainage characteristics.
never had a.
And that's fortunate. And it's very easily excavatable, so that's all in his favor. He just lucked out. So in our last meeting, we had an area proposed of 2,100 square feet, way in the back of the property where there's a lawn area, and you could stabilize the ground better by putting a planting plan together, and this is a blow up of it. On this application, we've added another 1,000 square feet, which is, here's the proposed addition, here's the property line, and this is the woodland edge. And we just put in 1,000 square feet of plantings there. Types of plantings, color coded, and the details related to the installation of the plantings and monitoring once the plants are into the town. Silt fencing will be placed along the edge of the proposed mitigation area, protecting the wetland, the one in the back, and then up here, right at the crest of the hill, before it slopes down that way, we have silt fencing there, and then right at the downhill side of this. And we have notes referencing herbicide, pesticide applications, prohibiting that, things of that sort. So I feel that we've addressed a lot of the issues that were brought up at the last meeting, most particularly addressing, additional mitigation, stormwater detention, and
access.
construction access. And it's a much more favorable project. And our position is based on the architectural layout of the house. That's the practical location for the addition. We don't think that it's a huge disturbance in terms of earthworks. It's already a disturbed area. And there'd be little vegetation removed other than the landscape plantings and lawn. So with that, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to field them.
In the past, we required a bond in place for the planting.
Mm-hmm.
Have
So
have
to
you
the board,
discussed that
Is
with
there,
planning,
is there sufficient risk, Dennis, do you think? In the kind or amount that's being planted in terms of whether it's deer or just survivability?
I mean, I'm not concerned with the, with the wood stuff. I mean, I know you guys would bring up, which is probably a good idea, especially for the blueberry, you're gonna want some sort of herbivory protection, and I think,
We're calling out for deer fencing.
yeah, and
drones.
you're fortunate that in sort of these areas of the property, you're kind of like cordoned in areas where it's easy to sort of take full custody of it, and it doesn't really interfere with the use and flow of his property. It's nice that it's at edges, so you can sort of. Could someone mute, please, if unmuted? Thank you. So also too, just to, not interfere with, I'm sure you're gonna have whatever the landscaping plans are, here, they're kind of tucked away from that too, like avoid accidental mowing or people just kind of, so I think as I started out saying, you're to your benefit, right? I'm okay with the locations, I'm okay with the proposed. I know you got a lot of ferns there, they tend to be deer resistant. And it's probably a good idea for this property too, because you do have a wooded component, so the shade comes in fine. Usually when we do the, at least the bonding from, in the tree code, it's obviously for 10 or more trees. And then the planning board, it's, definitely for more trees and the woody plantings. Sometimes if it's just gonna be wildflowers and or ferns, I think they've required it, but sometimes they've reduced the length of time where that would be required.
So what's your sense here?
I don't think you have to be that aggressive with that. I mean, a lot of these are, relatively easily replaceable and not, shouldn't be a great expense or concern. I mean, we when we issue the permits, we tie that into the monitoring.
Right.
And same with respect to the building permit, at least from the initial planting perspective. We'll write on the cover of the folder, mitigation plantings, prior to receiving the C of O.
Okay.
in front of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ted? It's okay with you? Okay. Anybody else, questions, concerns?
We'll add the silk fence, the estate hay bales to the detail.
Right, that'll be added to the permit. No? Okay,
Other than that, we're good.
somebody wanna move to approve the application?
Move to approve the application for the Schneiderman site, as proposed with the comments discussed.
I'll
Second.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good.
Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Have a good night. Okay. Dias, 287 Croton Dam Road.
Gentlemen, good evening.
How are you tonight?
Good, yourselves?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us. Dennis, you want to bring us?
Unfortunately, it's just myself. Steve Marino could not attend. Neither could Maureen Fisher.
Okay, I'll try to help guide you,
Sure.
if I can, because I know what we discussed and
Yep.
what you submitted, and I'll just try to pick up from there, as they say, right? So if you recall the last time that this application had appeared, they did complete soil sampling. But one of the things that I had requested was just to grab another sample to do an analysis for these particular parameter of semi-volatiles, because we didn't have that. As
Soil
part of-
sample.
Yes, as part of the original submission, which I included volatiles, I think I saw pesticides, I recall. So no issue, Tom and I, with the results. So we're satisfied that the material that was brought to the property is suitable for residential use and consistent with, so I get my reference correct. Hold on, let me just see. Here it is. In accordance with 6 NYCRR Part 375 environmental remediation programs, not to focus on that remediation word, but they do have levels for residential for a variety of contaminants, protection of public health. So the results that we've received for this property, for all the parameters that were analyzed for, we have no issue. So we're happy with that it's relatively certified clean to make it a simple summation.
Okay.
The other items that we discussed, I went out to the property last week. In response to Mr. Diaz submitted a tree removal permit application for that one large oak. I think it's listed here on his plan as 38 inches in diameter. So that tree was definitely in decline, and in going out to the property, in addition to seeing the tree, so some of the other things we discussed at the prior meeting, I did not see the silt fencing, so that had been removed.
Right.
Which is what I said, should be done because it wasn't serving the purpose anymore. Some of the material that I saw that was, stockpiled or deposited there, of a, remnant brick, cementy construction nature, not a lot of material, but just, wanted that removed as well. Fair amount of leaf litter at the, toe slope. That's, to be expected. I'm not super concerned about that. And what was left was with respect to the tree. Mr. Diaz hired Bartlett Tree Service, and I received an email from Trevor Hall, who I've worked with before at Bartlett, and basically, in summary, that it's difficult to just attribute the work that was being performed to the decline of that tree. That it is an older tree, and likely was at some level of stress, as is indicative of just older trees in general, in conjunction with, last August was ridiculously dry, or last summer, I should say, especially July was very dry. So I think the combination of, not to exclude the work that was done, but I think, the cumulative effect, the tree is certainly not dead. But I did recommend that, maybe you take a look at it as a property owner, because you may want to consider possibly removing it just because of the size that it is and the decline that it's in. So I don't think that I could definitively say that, the root zone that exists has been, covered entirely in fill. I can't even say that the area where the tree is was necessarily representative of like a common area that was traversed regularly to perform the work. I just think a combination of things that can't come together to, have the tree be in decline. I haven't issued the permit yet, but I just wanted to sort of bring that up and discuss it at bless you.
Thank you.
At tonight's meeting, because I know that was another item that I had mentioned. To have, to be addressed prior to returning to the board, which Mr. Diaz did.
Okay. And so those were the only two open items?
Yeah, analytics, some site maintenance, housekeeping, and the tree.
Otherwise, pursuant to the discussion we had last month, you're comfortable with the plan that's as it's proposed at this point?
Yes, because he's proposing, which remains unchanged, the plantings and the shrub clusters and the tree plantings within the area that slope has been slightly changed and some level areas added. I'm comfortable with that, yes.
Okay. Any questions from board members? No?
No.
Okay. Should I have a motion to approve the plan? Now, I understand that there's still building department action that's going to be required here, right? You said?
Right,
Dennis?
right. So for the purposes of this property, obviously this board's just looking at the wetlands. I know that Mr. Diaz is dealing with the town engineer regarding chapter 113, which is steep slopes, because he's just trying to determine what work was potentially done in or not done in, because a part of Mr. Diaz's to the rear of the property has a overlap mapping as steep slopes, not the entirety. So they're kind of now sort of going back and forth as to what's required so that, the town engineer could sort of make that determination. And then, of course, these activities required a building permit for filling and grading, so that's with the building inspector, Tom DePaul, as well. So those two, in essence, would remain outstanding until satisfied to their.
What we're approving is just the 137
Yep,
issues.
correct.
The motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay,
thank you.
And Dennis, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay.
Okay, now we have two new applications. First is 10 Kathleen Lane, Mount Kisco.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Environmental Review Board. I'm Alan Pilch. With
Alan,
me,
how are you tonight?
very good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Excellent. With me also is the project architect, Tim Lanner.
Good evening, board.
How are you?
Very
And
good, thanks.
Perhaps if I could, I can share my screen and just sort of run through the project. Hopefully that is visible. So this property is located, I'm assuming you can see this, correct? Yes. Property is on the west side of Kathleen Lane, which runs just off of 117. The property itself is an acre in size. And let me just start with the survey drawing. Property is on the west side of Kathleen Lane. It's an acre in size. There's an existing house in the kind of like central portion of the property. There were a couple of wetlands which were identified in the field by Mary Janig. She identified 2 wetland areas located in, I'll say at the corners of the property, if you will. I'll say associated with, but she didn't mark out. And when I visited too, there's a grass swale on the property on the kind of parallel to the street. And it kind of runs both on the east side of the street, the other side of the street, and this side. And there really are like grass ditches. They only carry water during precipitation events. When I've been there, they've always been dry. And they, so there's a little culvert that runs under the driveway, continues further north, and this continues all the way further all the way to the north to Kathleen Lane's intersection with Bedford Road, Route 117. And you can see here the 100-foot buffer shown on the property. It includes the entire driveway, good portions of the house, just a little bit of the house was excluded out of the buffer. So that's what was identified on the property. I'll go to what's being proposed and I'll sort of break it down. What's being proposed on the property is to construct a new garage attached to the house and convert the existing garage to living space and also construct an addition at the back of the house. A portion of the garage would be within the 100-foot buffer. The house addition is outside the buffer. I'll just point that out. And the driveway is also being realigned because the current driveway is here, comes into the garage, and it's being realigned basically to access the new garage space. In addition, there's an existing kind of an extensive flagstone entry that's going to be redone. And so there's a new bluestone walk to the entry itself. And that's basically what's being proposed in the property. There's some drainage work too, which I can go into afterwards. But I'll just show you what analyzed on the property. This shows the, let me just take this down again. This shows the existing impervious surfaces within the 100-foot buffer. As you can see, there's 3,098 square feet of impervious surfaces in the buffer. Most of the house, all of the driveway, as I said, that flagstone walk in the front and a little flagstone walk on the north side of the house, north being up. The removals are shown on this because remember the driveway is being realigned to access the new garage, which is going to be located here. So what's going to be removed is portions of the driveway, portions of the walkways, which are no longer to the existing entry because that's being reconfigured. And that's another portion of the driveway that's being reconfigured as well. So it's going to be removed. And finally, this is the new impervious surfaces. This is essentially the new driveway to the garage. So that's a new impervious surface. And that's the portion of the garage within the buffer. And as you can see, the net new impervious surfaces is 50 square feet. There's removals of 648 square feet and new impervious of 698 square feet. So it's a net increase of 50 square feet in the buffer. That's what's being proposed.
Are you counting the new bluestone walkway?
Yes. That's all in the calculation.
That's in the new?
Yes, it is. It's part of the calculation in here too. The reason it's in here is this is already impervious.
No, I understand that, but
So it's not really new. There's already a walkway there.
right, but are you counting that area in the subtractions or no?
What I'm showing here is no, I'm not counting it. This is where the new walkway is, and it's over existing impervious surfaces from the existing walkway. But this portion of the walkway is being removed, and this portion of the walkway and entry are being removed in the reconfiguration. This is currently impervious.
Right.
So I'm not gonna, I'm not counting it to be removed, and I'm not counting it to be constructed,
No, because it just looked like it's in the area to be removed.
right, because it's existing. Correct, it's not being removed and it's not new because it's already-
Technically, it'll all be removed and a portion of it will be replaced back.
Right, but essentially it's impervious now and it will be in the future.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that your calculations are correct, that if you're replacing it, then that it's part of the new, or that you're not or that you're not deducting for all of it. You're only
Right.
deducting for the net portion that's not being replaced.
I think that's a better way of expressing it. The latter, because it's not being counted as new, because it's also not being shown to be removed.
Right, okay, if the net area,
Yeah, when I looked at what was impervious as opposed to, what's impervious now and whether it'll be in the future. So that's why this area, which is currently impervious, under the removals is not being shown to be removed because it's already impervious. That's why it's shown that way.
And so you see,
Finally,
what
this
this yard looks like?
is, there is a
Do you see
mitigation
what this,
being
you
proposed.
see yard looks like?
Yes, yeah, I'll describe that because it's an interesting area with the wetlands and the grass and the ditches and.
Finally, there is a mitigation area that's being proposed, basically to fill in an area that kind of like has a, we call it view to the street, but there's also rain guards being proposed. There are some drainage issues with the house. And so we're constructing a rain garden here, basically, which would, filter, provide water quality improvement. There's, and afterwards, it's just sort of, if there's any excess runoff that goes from the rain garden that doesn't percolate into the ground, it will go into the, basically it's directed towards the mitigation area. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add to it?
Me?
Because otherwise I'm not asking if there's anything you'd like to add. Because
Oh,
otherwise,
if the
say-
board wants to run through what's happening with the architecture and why that garage is going there, I'm happy to show that to them.
I can unshare if you like. And then I can certainly open it to obviously comments from the board.
So this is the existing floor plan. This is the current entry into the house, and there's a large wooden platform with steps that go down here. And the rest of that flagstone paving is around that. So you actually walk into this house directly into the middle of a pretty small living room. I guess that's what they would call it. It's very closed off from the rest of the house. The fireplace is off center. There's no other way into the house from the garage. You actually have to go out and into the front door. The kitchen is pretty minuscule size over here. So the idea was to recreate a new entryway further over in this corner, take the garage space and transform that into a new mudroom and kitchen off the back, and build a new garage off to the right-hand side, which you'll see right here. So this gives you a kind of a better idea also of where that, like a blow-up area of the walkway, that it'll be new flagstones, but this whole entire area is already impervious with stone and that wooden platform. So portions of that can then be transferred back to green space up against the house and kind of soften the look of the house. So this is where the new entry will come into the house. We can actually give them a coat closet, take out a wall in the middle, and now you've got yourself a real living area where you can share the seating and the dining space. A new kitchen will be constructed in the back. This is the portion Alan mentioned that is not part of the wetland buffer. And the wetland buffer is right in here. But however, as you saw, most of the house already is within the buffer. This is the area where the existing garage is. You can't really even park a car in there right now because the chimney sticks into it. So we're reclaiming that space to create a side entrance. We can get a real, like a mudroom entry that will allow people to come in both from the front and from the garage. There'll be a few steps down into the garage for a car. That we've left enough space in here so that trash cans, gardening equipment, vehicle, and so forth can all be, have enough room to fit. So you might ask me, well, why did you put the garage here and not further back? Well, there's a couple of reasons. There's a couple of mechanical issues in the house that currently they have a boiler down in this basement and it direct vents right out the side of the house right here. And I really prefer not to have to, right now we're just extending it, but we really rather not completely relocate it. And they also have air conditioner, back there, which is in a kind of a nice spot on the property because it's shielded from where the outdoor living space is. Something else to mention is out the backyard is where the septic tank and septic system is. So it's basically impossible to build anything new back in this area that might be out of the buffer. And unfortunately, our garage and driveway is all within that buffer, and that's part of the area we're trying to enhance, make it a little bit better. So, the garage back wall is set here. The front wall is, enough for a car to adequately fit. And also, it just turns out that sliding the garage back any further will increase our impervious area because we'll need more driveway to access it. So we thought better to, not have that issue. And also, seeing these step backs in the floor plan will be able to give me a pretty nicely enhanced look at the house by having this small gable projection where the garage is for smaller scale, and then a larger roof, higher projection here above the main area where the current garage and the new garage meet. So there'll be a slight regrading here, as Alan showed on the map, that there'll be about a 18-inch high little wall to level out this area for the driveway. And also my site plan, is a little more colorful than Alan's. So this might also help you visualize what's turning back into green. All of this jagged area here is all currently that paver impervious area that's going to disappear, as well as some of the driveway. And so there'll be like a minor regrading here just so the car can be level coming into the garage and parking on the driveway. So that's my portion. If anybody wants to ask any questions of me or Alan.
I have one question on the new driveway. How are you handling the runoff on the driveway? I see you have, piping from the house leaders, but what are you doing with the driveway?
Originally, the driveway basically drains toward the street. And we weren't really planning on modifying that. It's not really changing all that much in the total area of it. But we weren't planning on picking up the runoff from the driveway. As I say, it currently drains from the, say the present garage down to this street, and it would in the future.
So none of it, you don't think any of it from the new asphalt is running, I guess, up the page into the wetland area?
Well, I suppose a portion of it may very well could be directed. I'll call it the driveway apron. Maybe I could share screen again just for a moment.
Only that you have a line going underneath it. Maybe just add a inlet.
I'm just thinking that potentially there could be something here, or perhaps the runoff. Can you see this on the screen?
Yeah.
Perhaps the runoff from here could be directed into the rain garden. So we're picking up this much of the driveway and directed into the rain garden itself. That could be done through a swale or something like that. Something very, straightforward. An inlet would be hard to do.
You have the wall.
potentially it could be done
Yeah,
that way.
it'd have to go around the front of the wall, I guess.
Yeah, only that you have that wall there, so,
Yeah, there's a very low wall here, but it could actually go around here into the rain garden. So we could do that. So you're picking up this much, so it's really just a small segment, which is actually quite a bit less than what was, I'll say, what's occurring presently.
right, but what's occurring presently now, you're adding into the wetland setback, so it's
Well-
up for, it's up for discussion.
Sure.
So that was one.
Okay.
Two, you're showing a washout area, a concrete washout. I would suggest that there not be any washout area, that you use a box so that can be taken away completely and not create any washout within the wetland setback.
So basically, you're just looking to have some type of container, if you will.
Yes, a concrete box, and they just drop it off and they pick it up when they're done.
Sure.
And that way we get rid of any juice that's gonna slip out and.
Okay, that's fine.
And my other question is, you're showing also a drainage line going underneath the wood deck. Is that wood deck to remain, or is that,
The wood deck is to remain, but we're going to refurbish the boards on top, so there'll be access to get that pipe underneath the deck.
okay,
By the way, just want to mention that there's a lot of pipes on this house running all the roof water every which way, and a few of them are directed to that northern portion where Alan put the rain garden. And I think that this tying in all these roof lines to one uniform area is going to be a huge improvement for this north side of the house, which right now it's just, you can actually see some of the pipes above ground. It's kind of a mess. So it's going to be a huge improvement when it's all said and done.
They're lying on top of the ground in few locations.
Okay, do you want to talk a little bit more in detail about the mitigation then, Alan?
Sure. So I could share screen if you like to, just have it on the screen. Proposing for mitigation is an area of present lawn, I can show you a picture of, but it's just basically a mown lawn area, which is about, its mitigation areas, as I say, is 285 square feet in size, proposed just with native plant materials, amelanchier, clethra, red osier dogwood, ilex glabra, and kalmia, just to be planted here. And the idea here is that since all the runoff, the majority of runoff on this property all heads essentially either to the grass swale and the ditch on this side further down here, or it all drains this way. So the idea is to try to intercept it. And I think it will help too to remove some lawn area, and actually provide a place for native plantings. It'll help infiltrate some of the soil into the runoff into the groundwater. Plus, as I said, for this rain garden that's here, the overflow would be directed towards it if there is any overflow at all. So I think that would be helpful too, to provide, I'll say some benefit to the wetland area and some habitat as well. And I looked at originally, I know this is like a hydric lawn, but it's only like 5 square feet here. And this portion of the wetland area is actually located off the property. And usually in situations like that, if I saw a hydric lawn, I would probably say, oh, that's where I'm going to plant. But at 5 square feet, I could put a shrub in there, but that's, it would be on its own, if you will. So that's why I ended up looking at this location, since when you looked at the existing condition, all the runoff seems to run this way into the ditch and then continue to the north. So that was the derivation of it. Also, we'll provide some screening of the house from the street. and the 285 square feet is here. This is for the 50 square feet of new impervious in the wetland buffer. The rain garden is quite separate, is obviously not counted. The rain garden was designed to capture and treat water quality.
I'm sorry, do you mind
Ms.
muting?
Peskin, can you mute yourself, please?
I can unshare.
Does it ever have any effect on any of these tenants if it's in, if they're in a flood zone? I don't think this property is in a flood zone.
I don't think so either, but it's interesting. This house has a sump, presumably?
Yes,
Or
it
no?
does.
Right, okay. So this is, I can only describe this as an odd spot of town in terms of.
Well, it's a flood zone over there.
Right, and you have these ditches, they're all, you know, when you go on to Westchester GIS, they have them like as mapped water courses. And, you know, I'll start with across the street, to the north of Circle Drive, there's a similar grassed swale that I wouldn't consider a water course or a wetland. And then where it starts to get a little bit damp, it's, you know, kind of has a bunch of riprap and then disappears into a catch basin. So I look at that as, well, something may have existed historically when they developed the area. They're trying to push all the drainage, you know, as they can, sort of in that direction. And this property, it doesn't show up on Alan's plan, but it shows up on the survey. There's a discharge of the sump where it says a 2-inch PVC, which is outside of the stockade. And you see that pipe, and that area is like really wet. And then it dries out almost immediately as you continue along that border of the property. And then I don't want to say reemerges. That's where Mary, you know, basically delineated wetland WF1B, 2B, 3B. It looks like some of that area may continue on to the next property. And then again, it looks like it just kind of peters out. And it was the same where they did WF 1 through 3. It's like, there's like these accumulation points of wetness, and then it's like dry all around, you know, and then they have the swales that, I agree, they're swales. They're not continuity of a wetland system. It's not, it doesn't represent that to me. To the point where, and I told Alan I was going to bring this up. So this is not in the Environmental Protection Overlay District. And chapter 137, in their definition of wetlands, lists areas 1/10 of an acre or greater, and then goes on to define, you know, the methodology used to delineate and the hydric soils and whatnot. So I said to Alan, obviously some of this is off property, but when I looked at the areas that were delineated that I agreed, those are the wetlands, I was trying in my own head to figure out, do you even have 4,356 square feet of area that would even represent wetlands? Because it's just so disjointed. And it's hard for me to say this swale is connectivity, and that's why this is wet and that's wet. I think it's kind of what Tim was alluding to, that I can only imagine like what the network of piping and where water is drained to and where this is, you know, and as Ted pointed out, an area that has some hydrology to begin with. So they're just being concentrated in these areas. And I guess over time, those areas almost like isolated from each other, with the exception of these swales, maybe during storm events, that's where the water is just accumulated. And hence you got hydric soils. So it was a little
So did
unique.
Mary calculate the extent of the wetlands, or she just delineated it?
She just delineated them. It was just something that had struck me because I was trying to figure out like what is going on here. You know what I mean? You would think that, you know, to Alan's point, you got a wetland at one end, you have a wetland at the other end. You would think if you enter that swale that you would expect some sort of hydric experience, and it wasn't happening. It was just, it was
I
odd.
mean, regardless of a rain event.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It was just odd. So
Yeah, it sounds like it was originally designed when the neighborhood was built as just a drain, just as a stormwater drainage mechanism of some kind.
Right, and I think there probably was hydrology there prior, or to Ted's point, hydrology that, you know, needed to be handled that for certain.
Well, just because
events.
it's in a flood zone
And
doesn't
this
mean
is-
it's a wetland.
Right, no, exactly,
Right,
absolutely true.
Is that, just because it's in a, just a flood zone doesn't mean it's a wetland?
definitely
No,
not.
or vice versa,
Okay,
Right.
that was kind of my question.
Right.
or
I
vice
didn't know-
versa.
I didn't know if there was a difference, because I know that neighborhood, some streets and houses are designated flood zone.
Right, no, a wetland is discrete from, a wetland,
May flood, but
right, it may flood, but it is wet regardless of flood situations.
Wetlands can be in
That was my,
floodplains,
I just, was a kind of a question for me.
not all floodplains are wetlands, right?
And Dennis, with regard to the 5,000 square feet, I myself am not a delineator, so I don't feel comfortable making that judgment, if you will.
I didn't ask you.
I'm saying this to Dennis. I know, Mr. Chairman, you did not.
No, I just thought, you know, Mary was doing the wetland analysis that she might have. Okay. So Dennis, you happy with what's being proposed here in terms of the plantings of?
Yes, and I agree with David about, you know, obviously, you know, picking up all of
Picking up
this.
the drainage?
Yep,
Yeah.
taking all of this up and just putting it in that direction, I think that's,
Yeah.
it's a smart move, you know. Who knows, in time, you may lose, you know, WF1, 2, and 3, I mean, I have, you know, and that's,
Right,
That's-
sounds like
that's
they may
fine.
disappear.
that may happen, and that's how it goes, you know, so.
Just from somebody who has a little rock wall on the side of his driveway, if you're gonna plow it and this rock wall goes, is it gonna be above the level of asphalt?
Well, that's a good question, because you don't want someone to drive off the end of it, but you also don't want to plow it either.
Yeah, so just something to keep in mind as somebody who's picked up rocks every winter after the plow is.
Thanks for the heads up.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, then I think we're entertain a motion to approve the permit as requested, subject to the modification to accommodate the runoff by channeling it in front of the wall over into the rain garden.
Motion to approve as stated.
Second,
the motion.
all in favor? Aye.
Thank you so much, board.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate
Very
it.
welcome. Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night.
I think Coach is undefeated. Can't work that out. Or at least what I can, from my memory.
Yeah. Gets the easy ones. The tough ones can make it to Jerry Barrett. So,
I haven't seen him in a while.
right. That's why.
Hello?
Okay, you,
Hello, I think
Hi.
Dennis went to get something. I'm Tracy Shalaco.
Tracy, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
I'm here to present 15 Deerfield Road from Mr. Michael Peskin. And
Okay.
I think Dennis
Why don't
wants
you-
me to read from him.
Okay, why don't you come over to this side? That's it, he's getting easel.
Yes.
It's right around the corner from us.
Thank you. Just to go back there, did you say? Probably.
Yeah, I guess we can review, it's probably a good idea.
Right over this area, fine.
Ted, before you, I keep meaning to ask you, there's a house at 120 and 133 at the light. For 30 years, no one has ever lived there.
Guy just goes.
Guy, and
Yeah, that's it.
what's the story of that?
Which one?
It was,
On the right hand side,
it's
it's
the
the White
weirdest
House
thing.
at the corner. Right,
If you're driving down Seven Bridges.
No.
Go up
120.
120
Oh,
to the intersection of 133.
With the traffic.
oh, that one, oh, yeah. Doesn't the fire department use that for training these days or something?
Somebody's
Yeah,
been
there's
paying
no
taxes on that
explanation.
house for-
It's a family member that has held on to the house, who waters the lawn, and it doesn't. That's as much as I know.
And for 30 years, that.
Right,
we
no,
watched
no.
somebody do that.
No, and I thought at one point they tried to sell it and couldn't sell it and then just held on to it for some reason.
I sold the house across the street, and then the guy who lived in the house across the street for years knew him. And he just said, he told me, and he's like, yeah, that's what he does, he's a nice guy.
But no, it doesn't bother living in the house.
No.
Okay.
Good evening again. For the record, Tracy
Good evening.
Chalafoe, landscape architect. And with me tonight, I have Mr. Mark Fritz, who's the building architect. He's joining us over Zoom. And if you have any questions pertaining to the architecture, feel free to reach out to him. So I'm here tonight to present the wetland application for construction of a 168 square foot addition to the existing residence, and also a deck expansion and replacement of portions of the existing deck in kind. And I'd actually like to open with a project update that I just was made aware of tonight. Mr. Paul Janig had flagged the wetlands, which happen to be the DEC estate regulated wetlands. And on your plan, the line, which was taken from I guess a map database, sort of closely follows the back of this existing stone wall. But Mr. Janig went out there and flagged the actual wetland line. So look at this line as approximate, but in reality, where he placed the flags, it varies, but it's generally probably 3 to 5 feet behind this wall. And I believe you have his wetland sketch somewhere in your packets, but this shows it. I'll just hand this to you, might be easier. You can see this symbol, so there's the existing wall, and this is the wetland line behind. So it's a few feet behind. If you see that kind of tooth symbol behind the existing wall, and I'll get to why I'm showing this to you in a moment. So you'll see the existing stone wall and the wetlands line is behind. So we were waiting for the DEC to accept Mr. Janig's flagging, and they're in agreement. So I imagine something in writing will be coming to you or to Dennis stating such. And the reason this is important is because even though this portion of the deck exists and it's being replaced in kind, you can see that the 100-foot state wetland setback comes to about here, and visually, graphically, it just sort of clips a portion of the new landing, new deck. But in reality, no portion of the new deck will be within the 100-foot buffer.
Because it's 5 feet.
Because it's 3 to 5 feet
It was measured
back.
from the wall originally, or the assumption was that the wall?
So I could,
And maybe
right.
Dennis can.
So I
check
think,
that.
correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Fritz, there is an image in the application package where they took the overlay of the existing DEC freshwater wetlands map, which is a 1 to 24,000 scale. So when they were close, they said, look, you need someone to delineate the wetlands. I need to know whether you're in the wetlands or out of the wetlands. And also for the perspective of the state, I need to know whether you potentially need a DEC permit or not. So when Paul delineated the wetlands. I went out and inspected the line, and I agreed with Paul, and it was offset from that wall further into the woods. So where I saw his flags, I said, well, if DEC agrees with this line, then I believe what's shown there is going to fall out, and they're not gonna have to worry about DEC, they'll only have to worry about the land of Newcastle. And that's where I think we sit at this point. Mr. Peskin is aware that obviously for this project, he's gonna, have to produce a survey. And that's going to include Paul's delineation and obviously the acceptance from DEC, which basically so that we have for the file, A, whatever building requires with respect to the final construction, and then B, the wetland delineation line that would be as surveyed overlaid onto that plan, and that's required prior to receiving a C of O. We've had that discussion.
Thank you, Dennis, for clarifying that.
So what are you doing here?
So,
So now that the state's out of the way, I just wanted to make that clear, that the
Right.
state is not gonna be involved.
so, speaking of locally regulated wetlands, after Dennis did a site visit, he discovered this existing swale, or more of a drainage ditch / swale. So from the center line of that ditch offset 100 feet is your locally regulated 100-foot buffer. So that comes more halfway through the residence. Okay, so we have two different types of wetland lines here, the state regulated setback line and the locally
Right.
regulated. Oh, here's the photo of
That's the photo that
the
was
swale.
difficult for me to just call. I think it kind of met the definition of water course and it directly discharges to the wetland. There's no interruption of hydrology,
Right.
so. I'm sure
Where
historically.
do all these various pipes come from?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How many sites? Do we know?
Yeah, I'm not, it's not,
Not just from 15 Deerfield,
no,
is my
not
guess.
at all, not at all.
Are they like
If I could,
curtain
hi,
drains
this
and
is-
Oh,
stuff like that?
excuse me, with me here tonight, I also have Mr. Michael Peskin, the property
I was
owner.
just gonna, hey, how's everybody doing? I can say that is so the water runs down the street into a drain and then it eventually makes its way there. So it comes from many directions, actually down Deerfield, which kind of, I'm towards the bottom of it and it drains out through that storm. It's actually a recorded stormwater drain easement, which kind of shows up in title.
Yeah, it looks like there are a
Lies along
bunch of
there.
other pipes that feed into the same place though. All those,
Yeah,
those PVC pipes.
Yeah, my house, it's 15, my house does, the drain does, and the other places. I have, leaders that run down and then under, and then it goes there.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, historically, it probably was some sort of conveyance, and when you're building all the development around it, it kind of made sense to, like, you usually don't drop a drainage easement in high ground, and you just kind of follow the land and,
Right.
yeah, let's go with this, so that makes sense.
So the area of the existing deck, which is sort of this footprint here, here's the line of the existing deck, is 1,054 square feet. And then the proposed house addition, as I mentioned before, which is this area, is 168 square feet, but it's built within the footprint of the existing deck, so impervious within impervious basically. And then the portions of the existing deck and steps to remain, that's 885, so it's basically this area plus this area. And then the proposed new decking is 247 square feet, so that is this area here. So to mitigate for that increased impervious area, we're proposing some native plantings within this area. And it's a total of 14 shrubs, 3 to 3.5 feet in height upon installation. And also, we're calling for 31 native perennials, which are a mix of ferns and iris. I'd like to point out, this area is quite wooded. But there are just a lot of existing trees here. There's a lot of canopy, so any plant selections had to be very shade tolerant. But since this area is closest to our area of construction, it seems to make the most sense to concentrate the mitigation plantings here to give us an additional buffer, even though the canopy is serving as a substantial buffer here, but there's an opportunity to just add to that here, and this existing shrub is to remain. So the perennials are basically along this channel, and then the shrubs are within this area here. So we have some spice bush, witch hazel, arrowwood viburnum, all thrive in shade conditions. They're very tolerant of that. And just to speak about the construction sequencing a bit, our access would be gained through the driveway and an anti-tracking pad would be installed. Silk fence is actually already in place. We might have to adjust it slightly, but it's approximately here, just at the perimeter of our construction. The existing septic system is here, so we'd also install some snow fence or similar to prevent that, to make sure the workers stay out of that area. And then very simply, they demolish the portions of the existing deck to be removed. They'd excavate for the foundation for the addition, and then excavate the footings for any new posts related to the decking.
Is the decking open to the ground, just wood decking?
Yes, it's wood
Nothing
decking.
underneath?
High up, how high off grade?
Actually, it'd be great if Mark could perhaps answer that for us. The height of the decking, Mark, from the existing grade.
I had to unmute. Hi, everybody.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Hi. I mean, the current deck essentially is it's a one large, long level deck, and then it has steps going down to that existing lower grade level deck. So what I essentially was looking at was breaking that into three parts, so that the deck actually has three levels, including that lower grade level piece. So bringing it closer to the ground as we go. So essentially it's about 4.5 feet high off of grade at the highest point. And then it comes down a few steps to the next level. And then from there, it basically is following the way the grade is working from, as you look at the back of the house from the right side to the left where that drainage is along the property line. So the grade actually drops.
What's the elevation? What's the elevation of the new portion of the deck that's outside the existing footprint?
I believe that's about 3.5 feet. I have to take a look myself just to refresh my memory here. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, so the lowest portion is over here?
Yeah, the grade drops this way.
Right.
Yeah, it's sloping like that, essentially.
So this would be the new portion then, right? Yeah.
Yes, this is existing to remain able to be rebuilt in
Right,
place.
this is the new.
This is the new, correct.
This coming out.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Actually,
And this would be existing as well.
and here's the plan view of that. So this is rebuilt in place, this is rebuilt in place, and then this is
Right,
sort
you
of
can see the steps go
this, like,
down
the
to this
line
level.
of the existing deck is about there, so
Right.
this is our new.
So
portion.
that's all at the same level.
So there's no occupied space below the deck?
The only area, it basically the basement of the new addition essentially just becomes an outdoor enclosed storage for landscaping equipment and things like that.
So there's no slab on grade? It'll be gravel or something like that underneath the deck?
We'll have gravel under, it'll be gravel under the deck. The only
Right.
slab we have is underneath the, what we're
There's no
building.
full foundation for the addition?
Yes, there's a foundation full foundation for the addition with a slab. Everything outside of that, which is under the deck, is gravel.
Got it.
Right. So it's gonna be like a crawl space or something?
Just stand up.
No, there's actually enough height there for you to stand. I apologize, I'm still pulling up these drawings. The computer's running a little slow with everything else that's open.
Right, well, this is the existing.
Right, right. The existing is in the same place as the new.
Right.
Except
So this will be solid now, and the access to that storage will be from inside or from outside or both?
Mark,
Yes. Just bear with me. I finally got it to open.
okay, thank you.
It looks
All
like
right.
it's coming from here, not that there's no access from the outside.
The question is, Mark,
This is not a.
where the
Where is-
access to the space under the deck is from?
Yeah,
Is it just
the
from the
access-
exterior
okay.
or?
Yeah.
So the access is actually off of that lower deck. If, I don't know whether you have my drawings there or not, but,
Okay, we're looking
We're
at
looking
the
at
lowest deck.
we're looking at the plan view,
okay. So in plan,
A4, right, drawing A4.
okay. In plan, it would basically be from that, the basement level terrace. The access would basically be from that side of the terrace into the,
These what look like windows?
yeah, you see where the windows are, and I believe there's a table that's shown inside. Well, forget that. It's that lower level, basement level terrace where where you can see where the new addition portion bumps out. On the short wall, there's a door there that leads us into this storage area.
Oh, it's not shown on the plan view though.
This is, right?
No, it's
No,
shown in the
This
elevation.
is the Jewish talking.
That's the
There should
door.
be a side elevation that we gave in the package.
Yeah, no, I see it on the
Yes,
elevation.
We're looking
Yeah.
at.
Couldn't
in
tell
the
whether it was a
elevation.
door or a window.
And it's in the foundation plan, actually. So if you looked at the foundation plan, you'd actually see the door.
Oh, there we go.
You should have a foundation plan, which shows the footing locations for the deck.
I believe it's that spot he's referring to.
Doesn't show the
Oh,
movie.
here it is, this one. That's the view. We found it, we found the door location.
Okay. There'll be an access door on each side of that under the deck. Obviously, the door closer to the higher end will be basically a smaller opening, but still an opening.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So will that be open to the rest of the basement, or the only access will be from outside?
Outside only.
We'll just make sure that's a note that there's no slab, and no, that it's just a gravel floor, so that it drains it.
Say that again?
So the way it's shown here, it looks like it could be a slab as opposed to what he just described as gravel. Right, outdoor storage,
Right.
so it looks like it's a slab going across.
There is a slab in the outdoor storage. Yes, that's what I said. Everything else, which is beyond the addition, under the deck is gravel.
Okay,
Just to make it clear, the outdoor storage is under the addition for the first floor. So that's
Correct.
the slab.
Right.
Yeah, that's the foundation for it.
But it's gonna be a foundation with a slab, not just the foundation, not just the sidewalls.
No, there'll be a slab. It's in the specifications. It's written as notes as opposed to labeling it a slab.
Okay, it's on page 2, I see it. Got it. So it's a first place. Got it. Yeah. And then what we usually ask is, how are they dealing with their, I guess they have
The runoff from the,
runoffs from the house already. This new one would just get tied into one of those?
Yes, exactly. The Mark has called for gutter and leaders for the addition. And then, as we mentioned, it'll be gravel under the entire deck footprint. There's actually an existing curtain drain in this location. It goes all the way from here to about here. So there's also the, even having the gravel under the deck, we could additionally direct that water into this curtain drain, which then outlets.
which way is it outlet?
It goes, this is the, I'm sorry, right here.
Yeah.
This is the end of it, so that's an existing pipe.
It's one of
One
those.
of them, yeah.
It's one of
those pipes.
Yes, exactly, so we're basically keeping the same drainage
Right.
system, working with that.
Okay. Dennis, any thoughts on the plantings?
My only comment, so Paul, when he did his delineation, he had some plugs in the area of where you see all the trees and where that existing ditch is, and that truly is a ditch. Looks like it was dug out, and where it terminates in non-wetlands. It doesn't quite reach the wetland. There's just, when I was back there that day, again, it's not wetlands, but there's a fair amount of hydrology back there. So again, it's, seasonal at that point, not there long enough to sustain for wetlands. So my only comment, I guess, with respect to the witch hazel, I think that side was a little bit drier, but again, this is just periodic seasonal. So it may be tolerant of it, but if things get a little too damp for that, if you needed to plant more of the other two, or find a substitute, I would be okay with that if you feel it might be too wet for that species. But again, it's not wet land, it's just
Right.
just periodic.
Right, I think the wetter area, I took some field measurements, I think it's more here.
Yep.
But that said, just if it is wet here, we could also just swap, the spice bush with the witch hazel. We can work with the same number
Right.
of plants and just flip them essentially. But I think this is a little bit drier here.
And it's interesting, like past the boulder wall, it like seemed drier than it
Yes,
was
much
there.
drier.
And then it got to be wetland again, so. Once again, the hydrologic dynamics of the land of Newcastle, it's just, yeah.
Yes.
Now, this area on those photos where those pipes outlet, is that off the property?
It's in this easement area, I think the
The
pipes
drainage
are
easement.
about, yeah, there's the CMP, so.
It's on the property, it's just an
Yeah.
easement.
Right. There's the culvert. And then it just kind of continues and eventually peters out in the wetland.
Is it worth doing anything in that area?
The problem is that since it needs to be maintained as a drain easement, I would be hesitant about the sustainability if there was ever an issue or if somebody had a problem and we would need to, I could see DPW saying, we have to clear this, we have to dig it out, which they do from time to time.
Yeah,
To maintain those, yeah.
yeah, they keep them. I have two, one on both sides of my property.
Right.
Two drainage easements. one on each side.
They go to a.
Go to a wetland.
I mean, I have one also, but I never see DPW. so-
No,
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
well, I call them, I
Yeah.
call them, I say, come clean it up. Backing up even.
Right, I mean, I'm sure if Mr. Peskin or his neighbors on a particular, period noticed, wow, that's a lot more water than we normally get, and, something doesn't look right in the easement, or water looks like it's being deflected from there. Yeah, that would be a call to DPW to say, why is it not, taking a straight shot, beyond the wall, and DPW has gone out to correct corrective issues so that, drainage is restored.
They just come by to clear trees from mine. Okay. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
No.
No, okay. Good. Looks like relatively straightforward. So I entertain a motion to approve the permit. With Dennis's comments on the planting noted. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the permit as stated.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right,
Yeah.
good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I think it's an interesting dovetail to that question, and Tracy, you may be interested, this is coming.
Yes.
So on tomorrow night's agenda for the town board, I prepared a memo as a recommendation to hire fat and sassy goats. And
To hire what?
fat and sassy goats. And what the proposal is,
Is that the name of a company?
yep,
Yeah,
locally.
The goat, you hired goats and they need
So
Yeah.
literal.
So
literal goats.
drainage easement comment, Tertia Brook here.
Uh-huh.
We, every year have the DEC and Corps come through because it's supposed to be, maintained as a flood control project. And
Sure.
we receive a minimally acceptable rating, so, the recommendation every year is like, look, you guys, you're letting this get too overgrown, it needs to be a thoroughfare, so we did a preliminary walkthrough with the representative from Fat and Sassy Goats, her, Commissioner DPW, Superintendent Parks and Rec, and myself walked through. And they feel that, they'd be able to take care of the area, so they provided us a proposal. With the help of Keenan Bean, I was able to draft a memo so that we don't have to go through bidding, because I really don't know of many
How many
other
alternates
goat
are there?
companies that are
Right,
running around. that
they're,
could
they're
do
a
this.
unique resource, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's on the agenda for tomorrow night, and if it's approved, we're hoping, I spoke with them and told them that this is where it's moving to. And she was, pleased. She's like, wow, a lot of times we
How does
have
that
these.
actually work?
Well, the way it would work is that the goats would be penned in various, I think 6 to 8 goats, for example. You would start with one area that would be penned, light electric fencing, mostly for the goats. Maybe a board so that they can cross the stream, they're not into really keep getting their feet wet. And then they just start eating
Within that penned area.
and trampling.
And then you move the pen?
That's right, every couple of days, they get bored, she said that's one reason, it's like, okay, we've covered this area, and so they work their way down. They're gonna be doing, I'll call it that Y, so the outfield part of the recreation field, in addition to what you see here is the 2 arms of the Y, with a culvert to underneath the train station parking area. And then from there, they gave us a price, but there was some hesitation that they may be a little skittish with the train going by. So I think DPW is gonna hire equipment to actually do manual cutting of that like final length stretch that kind of parallels the train tracks and then disappears underneath the tracks. That's where it would stop. So hopefully in May, it'd be kind of entertaining, good education. We got a playground right here.
Call Martin Wilbur from the Examiner, he'll send some a
Exactly.
photographer over and.
Yeah,
Cause I've seen them, these are
They
the
did
guys.
it at Whippoorwill Golf Course.
Okay, they do it in Riverside Park, in the city, I think. I don't know whether it's the same group. but
Right,
they-
right.
But they've had goats there.
yes.
you know, in part because of the steep slope,
Right,
it's easier for the goats to maneuver in there
right.
than to get machinery in.
And that's what she said. I said, the goats, she goes, oh, no problem with this. This is,
Right.
with this landform here, they're good. I said,
What's
great.
the cost?
Their requirements are a $5,000 minimum. And so the areas, those 2Y arms exceed that by a few $1,000s. And then if they did the final stretch, I think the whole thing would have been, I think about 13 grand. But as I kind of illustrated in my memo, they did approve the town board last year to hire John Jay Landscape to clear an area of invasives in Glacier Preserve. And, you know, it was around, it was cheaper than the goats, but the area was also like, you know, 10 times smaller in size, actually about that, yeah. So then the goats were more efficient
So on a
per
per square
dollar
footage
value.
basis.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good.
There
Just
you
watch
go.
out for mountain laurel, right?
Oh,
The goat professionals must know to look for that.
right.
It's
Why? What's
toxic,
mountain?
it's toxic
Yeah.
to goats and
Yeah,
other
here-
livestock.
Thankfully here
There's
it's all,
probably no mountain laurel.
no,
that's
it's all
where they
porcelain
see
berry. It's a big
nowadays.
problem, so.
Yeah.
Do
And mudboard.
the coyotes eat the goats?
There was some concern, hence why they have daily sort of checkups on them and, you know, why they pen them in. They didn't think it would be as much of a problem at this location.
So they sleep
So-
overnight and.
No, they don't,
Yeah.
they just stay there
Yeah.
for days
Yeah.
until they're done.
Yeah,
No, but I'm saying, what happens overnight?
they checked on daily. Yeah, that's part of the, part of
They
the
have
deal.
security?
Are you
or-
responsible for if they get
Some ways it's.
eaten by a
You
goat?
know, this town,
Yeah, sure,
you know,
it's
I
good.
think
We can
I
talk
think
about
it's
tomorrow and we'll have to
teenagers.
possibly clarify.
Right. Oh, you know, a couple of beers and let's go,
Still with the college mascot.
let's go ride a goat.
Right,
Thank you,
thanks.
everyone. Have a great night.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, it'll be a good field trip for the students.
For the younger ones, sure, yeah.
It's a great.
That'll be a good science project or whatever.
Yeah, even kids and parents at the playground, I'm sure they're gonna wanna
Oh, they'll go crazy.
be nice, yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Great idea.
yeah, I have to thank, I think, Christine Pappas gave me the card. It came up at a meeting, they're like, Dennis, you're supposed to look into goats, and I'm like, okay, I'll get right on that. I'm like, thanks for the card, otherwise I'm like, that's, you know, I have a ton of experience with, so hopefully it works out.
Great.
Very good.
Anything else?
That's it for now.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second? Said,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.